This session is for K through 6 classroom teachers, and the purpose of it is to educate them on modifications that they can use to help English language learners in their classroom. It is a 2-session PD workshop for educators, and one of the reasons we chose this topic was that it is actually a state mandated requirement now that classroom teachers, all teachers really, get educated on modifications they can do in their classroom to help ELL learners. And we thought a distance learning course on that or distance learning session on that would be a great way to deliver that instruction. The lesson is both synchronous and asynchronous. Attendees will be reading articles and watching videos, answering a discussion post, as well as responding to a discussion post. And then synchronously, they will be given a case studies and asked to break them down and add modifications and suggest modifications that would be great for the ELL learners in those case studies.
Okay, to start, what is ELL learners and the use of distance learning? So, ELL learners is English language learners, and they're students who are learning English besides them, knowing their native or learning their native language, which can be challenging for them. Clark and Meyer define e-learning as a training delivered on a digital device such as smartphone or a laptop, computer, that's designed to support individuals' learning or organization performance goals. How can we use distance learning? So, distance learning can occur by the use of videotapes, any interactive TV, by radio, satellite, or any technology use that can send messages throughout different parts of you don't necessarily have to be in the same room or the same town. It can be from one end of a country to another. It can be through a computer conferencing.
Articles and videos. The why. Why are we planning to include articles and videos in our PD? Per Clark and Meyer, knowledge construction is based on 3 principles. First, dual channels point out that people have separate channels for processing visual, pictorial material, and auditory, verbal material. As for limited capacity, people can actively process only a few pieces of information in each channel at one time. And active processing learning occurs when people engage in appropriate cognitive processing during learning, such as attending relevant material, organizing the material into a coherent structure, and integrating it with what they already know. The use of articles and videos allows the learner to follow the appropriate cognitive steps. It adds a mix of visuals and audio in the lesson. It also provides the learners with the opportunity to absorb and understand new material, and later engage in discussion with others. The use of articles and videos also opens the door to achieve enough generative processing. Clark and Meyer states that asking students to elaborate on a material or play educational games also represents attempts to foster generative processing. This allows the constructing of meaning while connections are being made between prior knowledge and new material. The research. According to Clark and Meyer, the purpose of the segmenting principle is to prevent cognitive overload by dividing a lesson into bite-sized segments. By chunking items and pre-teaching concepts, learners will be able to break down ideas and learn them in smaller amounts, which avoids too much extraneous processing. And as a result, learners can make valuable connections to the new content. Also, by giving the learner a pre-activity, in this case the articles and videos, it allows the learner to create a familiarity with the new content and be prepared for the main lessons. The research continue. For Jimenez video, Social Constructivism, Role of the Instructor, the recommendation to the instructor is to be a guide on the side. The use of articles and videos promotes discovery while learning. This gives the student just enough information to build confidence on their basic abilities, encourage them to discover and create connections to construct on their own knowledge.
We will be using a couple of methods to evaluate the professional learning that our teachers would be doing. First is a discussion board post in which they will respond to the articles and videos with their top 3 learnings and how they would apply them in a mainstream classroom. The research says that this qualifies as the engagement principle according to Clark and Mayer. The learners elaborate on the material, and this is an example of behavioral engagement. The learners are performing an overt action, which is discussing and posting on the message board. The learners will be required to do an initial response post and then respond to at least 2 of their colleagues. Dr. Jimenez stated that the discussion board could be used to promote student reflection activities, and asking them to reflect on their top 3 learnings allows that reflection for them. This is also an example of generative processing. Clark and Mayer talk about this, that this requires engagement for the learners, and having them discuss with each other can be motivating and requires that engagement from the teachers. The next way we will evaluate is the synchronous scenario activity. So groups of teachers are given 2 brief video case studies of ELL learners and their classroom environments. Through the use of Google Hangouts or Skype, they're going to break down the case study, come up with at least 3 to 5 modifications to help students be successful, and then submit a thread on a discussion board for further discussion and reflection. This is an example of what Clark and Mayer talk about on their engagement grid of quadrant 4. It is psychological engagement and behavioral engagement. They also discuss that multimedia scenarios give the learners opportunity to build experience faster. In our case, teachers may not be able to go into other classrooms and see ELL learners. They may not have them in their class, but using the scenarios gives them that job realistic context that Clark and Mayer talk about.
Why discussion board components and online communities? During the pre-class intro, get to know your students. Build a learning community where the students can connect in a social and cognitive presence. As O'Malley states, for the student can connect on a human and emotional level. The psychological engagement can promote achieving the learning goal by engaging in relevant cognitive processing during the lesson, as Clark and Mayer states. This will allow the student to have a student-to-student learning interaction, promote self-explanation, improve and develop cognitive and critical thinking skills, immediate support, feedback, and peer teaching from student to student as well as teacher to student.
We are going to look at 2 different forms of e-learning. They are synchronous and asynchronous e-learning. First, we will explore synchronous e-learning. Synchronous e-learning is an instructor-led course where the students are working at a fixed rate. This means that the students must log on to a webinar or virtual classroom at a specific time. There are benefits to synchronous e-learning. It allows students all over the world to participate in this course. As long as they have access to a computer and Wi-Fi, they can take part in the class. Another benefit is being able to record the session and post it for future reference. This is great for students to be able to go back and listen to parts of the lessons that they might not have understood. Also, this session is in real time, so students can be prepared and ask questions they might have and immediately get those answers. In this lesson on ELL modifications, we have decided to incorporate a couple synchronous activities. Our first synchronous activity is a Google Hangout with group members. This allows students to incorporate in real time with each other. The Google Hangout is very easy and convenient for students to be able to meet up and work together. Our second synchronous activity is a webinar discussing the project. This activity is great for the students to be able to ask the instructor questions in real time and get answers and advice instantaneously. The next form of e-learning we will explore is asynchronous. Asynchronous is when the content is available on demand and designed for individual self-study. This is when the students can access the content at any time or place and work on it as they please. There are benefits to asynchronous e-learning. The first benefit is that it is self-paced. This is great because everyone has different things going on in their lives and they are able to work on the lesson when they have the time. The next benefit is customized learning. This means tailoring the content, instructional methods, and navigation based on the needs of individual learners. This really allows for that differentiated instruction. In this lesson on ELL modification, we have decided to incorporate asynchronous activities as well. Our first asynchronous activity will be reading 3 articles and watching 2 videos. The students are able to review the content at their own pace and at their most convenient time. The content is available when they need it. This is great for people who have little free time and are very busy. Our next asynchronous activity is answering the discussion post. The instructor posts the discussion question at the beginning of the lesson, and the students can access and answer the question when they are confident and ready. This will allow students time to really understand the content at their pace, and they can post when they are ready. We decided to incorporate both synchronous and asynchronous e-learning into our modification for ELL lesson. Why did we choose to incorporate both? They both have great benefits and support all types of learners. The students are able to interact, collaborate, and respond to each other's and the instructor's thoughts and findings. They are also able to participate in the class from any location. But they are also able to work at their own pace and access the material at any time from anywhere. This is a good balance for an e-learning lesson. The students can get the support they need and the freedom to learn on their own time.
Finally, we have some follow-up information that we are going to give teachers access to so that they are able to get more information on ELL learners, some websites that we found to be helpful, and some books that they can use to learn more about accommodating ELL learners in the classroom.